PodBoi stands. We're hope that you're having a better day than MGK is after he got roasted. The only people that we're going to be roasting is Wes and Atwood because they're some fake boys and didn't show up. But it's 1/3 of the PodBoi Migos for the day. Ryan Nixon along with
Savannah
and Robby.
Yep. Sorry if I cut them off.
The important people of the podcast. So
yeah,
the ones with actual football knowledge, because
we'll cut out the irrelevant ones. If you're a Kentucky fan, your opinion is just automatically irrelevant. So sorry, Atwood.
This ain't a basketball podcast. And Wes only talks about irrelevant facts, which could be helpful sometimes. But
Nash Greer and shit like that. So.
And then he makes jokes about people dying.
Yeah.
Horrible, horrible jokes.
Like MGK dying. But speaking of a topic that Wes would probably make us laugh somehow in, we'll go with one of our first serious topics that we ever tried to discuss, Urban Meyer. Not much has changed since the last time we talked about him. I think we all know that
it's still Ohio State, so...
Well, there's the first one.
Just saying.
Oh, Ohio State.
Yup.
He's a terrible guy, I guess is what we're trying to get at, so...
He's a garbage human being.
He didn't seem sorry. I don't think he is sorry. It felt like when, what's his name? Is it Jake Paul or Logan Paul? Or one of them that, like, did a video of a guy that committed suicide.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt like after that, and he was, like, recording himself, and, like, I'm pretty sure he just, like, put water drops on his face to make sure it looked like he cried, and...
Well, like, I think that Urban Meyer, like, he completely means what he says when, like, he just keeps saying, I'm sorry that we're even in this situation. Like, he's sorry that he got caught.
He's not sorry about what happened.
Yeah, he's not sorry that, like, he knew about it and didn't do anything.
And, like, I mean, obviously none of us were there, but there's sometimes when these athletes and big names, like, I'm not gonna let people come out and like attack them for the name. I think this story's a lot different because, I mean, it's been going on, and it's a pretty reliable source, aka the woman coming out and saying it, like, straight up.
Well, I mean, like, it happened when dude was on his staff at Florida, and, like, I think Urban Meyer, like, said something about it then, or, like got dude help or something, you know? But then he turned around and rehired the guy at Ohio State, like, when he knew he had a pass to this. I don't know.
So, basically, Urban Meyer is garbage.
And, I mean, I'm not saying that Greg Schiano's done anything because, I mean, that one might be a little bit more up for debate. But, I mean, he's got a history of making sketchy decisions. I mean, like, you see that decision, Greg Schiano. But then, I mean, you know that he was throwing stuff under the rug at Florida, like with
Aaron Hernandez.
Yeah, Aaron Hernandez, and, like, just a ton of problems just throughout the years. So,
yeah.
At the end of the day, I get, like, you're a football coach and you really want to win games, but I don't think that you should sacrifice your ethics and being a, like, good person to win football games, especially when you're at Ohio State and you can basically bring in anyone that you want just based off that name.
So that's a big name college. People are going to want to coach there, so you hadn't got to bring in these sketchy dudes.
They just prove that they care more about, like, winning football games than they do, you know, their, like, public image, because they shouldn't want somebody like that as, like, representing their university.
And what's crazy to me is I thought Ryan Day, I think, honestly, if I was the university, I don't think you would be doing a complete reset, making him your coach, like, because he looks like a decent coach out there the past few games. So I get that it's a lot easier to sit here and say, "Oh, fire Urban Meyer," but I mean, I don't know why you're backing him if there's any doubt that he knew about this.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, if they just fired him, then they gave Ryan Day the title as head coach. I mean, he wouldn't really have to go out and hire a new staff. He could just keep what's there. He wouldn't have to rebuild a new staff. Just hire somebody to take his spot as offensive coordinator.
Yeah, and he does the offensive play calling, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So I mean, that's even bigger. Like that's an even bigger, shows that it's more of a slap on the wrist of a punishment that they gave, where it was 3 games, but he could be at practice for like, what was it, 2 weeks? So I mean, that just shows like he's not calling the plays anyways. So
yeah,
I don't know. All right, Sven. What was you saying? Sorry.
Ohio State sucks. That's all the story.
All right. That's a perfect ending to this.
So, up next, I don't want to pick this game, but I do want to talk about the Miami-Florida International game because they are airing it on ESPN2. So some people were kind of like, why is ESPN airing this? It's Florida International. But I read a little bit into it. In 2006, which I was pretty young, I probably did not watch this game. Miami, that was the last time Miami and Florida International played. And apparently there was like this huge brawl between both teams, and it wound up with 31 players being suspended. So it was pretty intense. I looked up the video. There was like body slamming, and they were swinging helmets and stomping on people and stuff. It was pretty intense. So hopefully we won't see a rerun of that, but I'm assuming that's why they're airing it on a big channel.
Did you say the coach got fired before it?
Mm-mm.
Wait, what?
Oh, I thought that you had said that the coaches at the end of the season got fired.
Both of the coaches got fired at the end of the season, and they were saying that like might have been part of it, but neither one of them were like great coaches. I don't know who it was for Florida International, but it was Coker for Miami. Don Strock at Florida National, and then Larry Coker at Miami.
Never even heard of him.
I've never heard of that dude. Is Butch Davis the coach there still? I'm pretty sure he was a couple of years ago.
At FIU?
Yeah.
Yes, he is.
It'd be kind of cool if he was.
Yeah, I mean, it's a crazy story. Because that's the guy in the 30 for 30 who's wearing all the FIU stuff.
Yeah, they were talking about how close the schools are to each other. I think they said it's 7 miles in between the two schools. So, it's, when you do a lot of recruiting in that area, you're going to have kids that played against each other in high school. So, lots of tempers running high.
Speaking of schools in the same area, or at least
in the
same state,
we got Florida Atlantic, our boy, out there coaching them, at number 16, the national champions, UCF.
I think this is going to be a easy pick. I think that UCF is going to maybe face a struggle at the beginning just because FAU does have a pretty good offense. But I think they'll have maybe a little bit of something to help prevent the rat poison from spreading. And I think UCF wins handily, following a second half surge.
I gotta pick UCF because a national champion doesn't come out and lose against a CUSA team. It just doesn't happen. So I got Central Florida winning big. Sorry, Kiffin, but I would like to see them also lose before they come play MTSU next week. So maybe they'll be down on themselves a little bit.
I'd really like to pick my boy Kiffin, but I just don't think they can beat Central Florida. I think it might be closer than 13 points, maybe, just because FAU does have a good offense, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a blowout either.
Yeah, for sure. Because, I mean,
this is a game I would not bet on.
It's two non-Power 5 schools, but
yeah,
as we've seen in recent years, UCF, like once you're a higher non-Power 5 school, it's easier to draw in recruits because you're basically drawing in recruits that probably could play Power 5 or at least the upper echelon of the group of 5 recruits. So TCU was able to do it in Boise State for a long time. Like it's just easier to stay at the top of the non-group or the group of 5 schools whenever you've had this success. And I think the Frost put them in great position. And I don't know his first name, but the Milton dude that's the Mackenzie Milton, he's a good quarterback. All right, I've got the perfect stat to segue into our next game. So, the amount of total yards per game that Central Florida has had is 609.
Nice.
All right, nice. Speaking of a nice matchup, we got the battle of the Cougars and the Trojans. All right, it's a matchup that
it's been around for a while.
Yeah, transcends the game of college football.
Cougars and Trojans just go hand in hand.
And I mean, when the Cougars have a crazy voice, as Leach does, sometimes there's no need for the Trojans. I don't know where I'm going, but let's just say I think the Cougars are going to have to be making the walk of shame back up to Washington. All right, because the Trojans are going to come off and go hard against the Cougars in this matchup after a bad defeat to the Horned foes that they faced last week. That's all I got on that. What you got, Savannah?
All right, I'm not going to beat around the bush here.
Oh, my.
Oh,
no.
The Trojans are going to the Cougars.
Okay.
So, let's be straight up. That's what's about to happen. This has happened out here in the real world. It's going to happen in college football. So
that was pretty direct.
It was direct. I just had to throw in the beater on the bush thing. I'm sorry for that. All right. Go, Robby.
Well, I'm going to disagree with both of you.
Oh, no.
The Trojans are going to bust again this week. Cougs are going to take this one. So they haven't really played anyone, but they're only allowing 130 passing yards and 98 yards rushing a game compared to USC giving up 380.
My only real thing against Washington State, and it's probably just because the Pac-12 games are always so late at night, which I usually like, but Washington State's got a new quarterback, and I know how much Luke Falk was big in them doing good last year. So
well, that new quarterback is 117 of 165 for 1,203 yards and 8 touchdowns already.
Oh my!
Well, while USC quarterback is 67 of 117, 800 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 picks. I'm taking the Cougs.
Well, I was gonna try and make a smart remark, but I don't know how to.
Over under 3, and I think the safe bet is the over is probably gonna get hit.
Look. I don't know. All right, so what's the next game?
All right. Up next, we have number 22, Texas A&M, at number 1, Alabama. Who you got, Ryan?
Well, Nick Saban is 12-0 against his former assistant coaches. And I really think that this is going to go to 13-0. I think that Bama's going to win. But I was looking at stats. Alright, so I know it was a different coach. But I think Jimbo Fisher's a better coach than Kevin Sumlin. And Alabama getting off to their hot starts. I think last year they beat Vanderbilt 59-0, followed by Ole Miss 66-3. And I mean, Bama beat A&M last year, but if you remember, that was a lot closer game, and they really struggled in that game against A&M. So I'm taking Bama, but I think it's gonna be closer than a lot of people are expecting. And I mean, I know it's a game of 2 ranked teams, but as we've seen, like, who was it when Georgia beat South Carolina a couple weeks ago? They looked pretty dominant.
Yeah.
And I think this is going to be closer than that. But A&M's quarterback is pretty good. I think he's a redshirt freshman, so I'm not saying he's the next Johnny Manziel, but he might be able to bring that team around again if Jimbo can coach him up.
I'm gonna agree with you, but also disagree with you. I think Alabama's gonna win, but I think they're gonna win pretty big. They played Ole Miss last week, and they manhandled them. Like, they didn't even look like
bad.
They did not look like a Power 5 school.
What was that score?
62-7. So that's just
a little closer than last year, 66-3.
Fun fact: Ole Miss scored on the very first snap they had on offense,
and then they didn't score again.
And they never scored again. They scored in like the 15 seconds of the game.
That's embarrassing.
I just think that if they can manhandle, like, it's not like Ole Miss is just any little team you can just beat by 60 points. Not everybody can do that. So, I think they'll be pretty dominant over Texas A&M. Not 60 points dominant, but I'd say by like 20 at least.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree. I think they cover the spread, honestly. Is that the spread in this like screenshot I'm looking at? 27?
Yeah, Alabama's 27-point favorite.
I'm gonna say that they cover it.
I think they will.
I mean, Alabama's so good, and like they just don't make mistakes. So like even if A&M's playing good, like, okay, they'll kick a couple of field goals. They're down 6-0, and then A&M makes a mistake. Bama gets good field position. They score a touchdown, then it's 13-0, and then they go 3 and out, and then Bama scores again, and it's 20-0, and like you felt like you played pretty good.
I honestly think that you could put Alabama in the NFL and they would make the playoffs.
That's not true.
They are better than some teams in the NFL.
Put them in the AFC South.
You put them in the right place, they could make the playoffs. They wouldn't win, but I think they could make the playoffs.
Also, Ron, mine and Savannah's NFL team is 2-0. I can't relate with it.
They beat the Titans. How does that make you feel, Ryan?
Look, that game was a crap show. Okay, we all know.
That was a horrible game. I did not watch it because it had like a 5-hour break in the middle.
It took 8 hours to finish.
Well,
all right. Unimportant game of the week, but it's another in-state rivalry, I guess. Number 17, TCU, aka Garbage, at Texas.
Fun fact, this is the first time I was ever at the Carter, at the G, was when TCU played Texas for their homecoming, so that just shows how far Texas fell whenever we scheduled them for homecoming a few years ago. But fast forward, Ed And Texas is coming off a big win against USC, which this early might be a little bit hard to read into it. And we're coming off a heartbreaking defeat. The spread is 3. TCU's the favorite. And I could honestly see it being a super tight game like that. I want to pick TCU just because I think that Gary can coach better than Herman. But I am a little bit hesitant. I'm taking TCU just out of fandom.
So Texas did have that big win last week against USC. But I will say that TCU's first half against Ohio State was just as impressive, if not more impressive than that game. So the second half, TCU went to the shitter. But in the first half, they gave Ohio State a good game. That was like a quality game. You want to sit down and watch good college football, that was that first half of that game. But I think that TCU is going to want to prove themselves a little bit now, because they feel like, I'm going to say that they probably feel like they played really good and then just gave it up in the second half. So they're going to want to come out and play hard the whole game.
I'm going to jump in real quick and say that in the past I have noticed that Gary coaches them up way better when they're the underdog. And I think you saw that a little bit last week against Ohio State. Yeah, they ultimately failed, but it's a good learning point for a young quarterback in Robinson. And now they're kind of at that backs against the wall. Like, if you want any chance at glory or winning the national title, you have to win out. So this could be a game whenever they blow the walls off Texas. But both teams are technically still in the title race at this point, even though Texas got destroyed by Maryland week 1. All right, well, who's your pick, Robby? Sorry for jumping in.
I think Texas is going to kind of have that hangover effect, you know. They blew out. Because was USC still ranked last week?
Yeah, they were 22 last week.
Yeah. They blew out a ranked USC team. But I think TCU will be, you know, they're fired up to get back out there after just kind of shit in the bed last week.
Texas is going to be too big for their britches.
So I think
Southern slang.
I think Texas gets that hangover after a big win, and I think it's close. But I think TCU will beat them because, like Ryan said, Gary's probably a better coach than
And
Herman.
going on that, Herman, I think he should have stayed at Houston because that Texas team has problems. Like, I'm not sold on Ellinger, and he's probably one of the big reasons why I stuck and chose TCU. Yeah, Ellinger's got better stats than Robinson, but last year, eventually the average is going to come back, and he was pretty average last season. Like, he's not the best quarterback. And I think USC's ranked number 22 was ranked number 22 last week based on their name, if you ask me.
Yeah. I think Texas has kind of had the same issue like Tennessee has. Like, since Mac Brown left, like, they just keep hiring shit head coaches.
You forget about the most important tool that Texas has. Matthew McConaughey.
The legend.
The legend.
They're kind of like Tennessee in the sense that, I mean, Texas, like, recruits itself.
Yeah.
You just have anybody.
It's Texas. Yeah. No matter how low they fall, it's still Texas. They can still recruit.
Yeah. And, I mean, if you get the right guy in there, that's turn it around. That's like Tennessee. Tennessee recruits itself. If you can get the right guy in there, eventually, you know, they'll turn around. But
we'll keep running them out till they put someone good in there anyways.
Neither team has found their answer at head coach.
I think that's why a lot of the times you see when those big powerhouses like are low, they're low is because the fan base puts so much pressure on them getting back to the top that, like, it's hard for a coach to maybe get their job done without
get in there and
being paranoid that
yeah.
everything's to be their last chance. Like you saw,
Well,
Alabama was low for a while, and now they're back better than ever.
Like, what I don't understand is, like, with these big programs, to quote the great Clay Travis for a second.
Oh, no.
Like, why don't they just go out there and get a helicopter dick coach that you know is going to win, instead of going after these guys that have really good potential, like you just don't know.
Yeah.
But with Alabama, they were horrible for like 2 decades almost. And then they went out and they got Nick Saban, who had won a national championship already, the head coach. And I mean, look what happened.
Yeah.
What was you going to say, Selena?
I don't remember, but Saban era has been their best, and we want to know, when's our Nick Saban coming as Tennessee fans?
Maybe he's already there. Maybe.
We'll see.
Maybe, just maybe, Pruitt will be the first assistant or former assistant to get the win under Saban.
It's not going to happen this year.
Not this year. Oh, no.
Unless a miracle happens.
No.
It would, maybe in like 4 years.
Maybe in 20 years or so. When...
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next game. We're getting off topic. Number 14, Mississippi State at the most garbage team, Kentucky.
Atwood, you heard it right.
You heard me, Atwood. This is what happens when you're not here.
She didn't stutter.
Alright, so I wonder when the last time that Kentucky was undefeated after 3 games, that it wasn't basketball.
A couple of years ago.
Alright, you're ruining my monologue.
Well, I mean, if you let me finish, the year I'm talking about, they started 5-0 and finished 5-7.
Oh, okay. I appreciate that.
Classic Kentucky.
Alright, so as I'm looking at the stats of each team, I've noticed one big outlier that, in my experience on Madden, never ends good. Alright. So, obviously we know Nick Fitzgerald, and watching game tape, I sound like a coach saying that. Watching previous games, I've noticed he does not throw the ball downfield the best.
He struggled.
But he is a good leader. Maybe kind of like Tim Tebow, but not Tim Tebow. And then I look at the Kentucky stats. Their quarterback, Wilson. Alright, he's 41 for 59. 392 yards. Through 3 games, that's not the best. But then I look, he's thrown 2 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. So that ratio is not going to carry on this streak for too long. And I think it ends against Mississippi State pretty handily. I just don't see Mississippi State losing this game. Who you got, Savannah?
I also have Mississippi State. They haven't played any teams that are super big. Like, they played Kansas State, but still, the Raging Cajuns, and but I think that this is the first game where they're gonna prove themselves against an SEC team. They're gonna end Kentucky's streak of winning right now, but they've also got to look ahead that they play Florida next week, and then they have Auburn, then LSU, then Texas A&M. So that's a few tough weeks coming up. So they're gonna want to start that hard stretch off on a good note. So I think they're going to be really motivated to win this game.
What you got, Robby?
I kind of think Kentucky's going to win.
Oh, no.
Mississippi State has been really one-dimensional.
Robby is canceled.
Fitzgerald has struggled to throw the ball at all, not just downfield. I don't know if y'all watched the Kansas State game, but it was hard to watch. They do have a good running back, but Kentucky, they have a pretty good one too. But I think it's gonna be like Texas. I think that Kentucky's gonna have the hangover. You know, they just beat Florida, and I think Mississippi State beats them.
And at this point, I mean, beating Florida, I obviously haven't been on the campus, but the vibes around campus, it puts a lot more pressure on the team, which sometimes it's hard to win against a number 14 team. But I'd say camp is about to be lit for the game.
I wouldn't be surprised if Kentucky does beat Mississippi State, but I think they have the hangover effect this week, like Texas.
But you chose Mississippi State?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Right. We got number 7, the Trees, Stanford, at number 20, Oregon. And actually, there's just... Let's see. Hold on, I clicked out. Stanford's just a 1.5 favorite, so it's pretty big for...
It's dropped just like Ryan sent me the spread earlier.
Well, for someone that's ranked 13 spots above you, a 1.5 favorite is not much.
It's in Autzen, I'm pretty sure. So it's in Oregon, which I don't know why, because it's not the biggest stadium. But I think I read that, like, the way the stadium is laid out, it gets wild in there.
I've read, like, it's something about the way they built the stadium that, like, the sound just, like, is constantly echoing off.
Like, that can be intimidating to go into.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you're traveling to Oregon. I mean, you're probably getting high the night before, so... I guess they're in California, so it's legal there, too. But, alright, so... I know this is really Oregon's first battle. They've had a pretty soft schedule.
That's what I was just looking at. And San Jose State gave them a run for their money last week.
Like, they beat Bowling Green, Portland State, and San Jose State. And last year, Portland State was 0-11. So...
Why are they even on your schedule? Who playing this?
Hey, they were Oregon State's sole win last year. I will say this is probably the hardest.
This is a primetime example of a cupcake schedule.
This is probably the hardest game that I've had to choose this week in my eyes, because what's his name? Justin Herbert is a good quarterback, I think. It's a completely different Oregon team than we're usually used to. But
I have no idea who Oregon hired after.
Mario Cristobal.
But I feel like it was an upgrade from Taggart.
You see Taggart's crap in the bed in Florida State.
Yeah.
No, that was embarrassing for Florida State. Let's talk about it. Their like slogan, their hashtag that they've been using was hashtag do something. Florida State's was, so they were kind of getting trolled after the game, and everybody was doing the hashtag do nothing. So it's to you, Florida State. That's a middle finger to you.
As hard as it's been to be a Tennessee fan, basically my entire life, since like 2007, I guess. I'm so glad I'm a Florida State fan.
Dude, even like they won the championship a few years ago,
but, like,
and then nothing good happened.
But nope.
That's not worth it.
Not worth what they're going through right now.
All right, going back to this game.
Sorry about that.
Spoiler alert: the Ducks are going to be coming out on top. I think you said the point. I think they win by 10. Justin Herbert is possibly a first-round quarterback, and he really needs to shine. And I think this is his breakout moment. Brusilov has not impressed me this season, and I know he sat out last week, but that's part of the reason that they started against UC Davis and only won 30-10. But this is going to be a battle of the stars, and I think usually it's easier to ride a quarterback than ride a running back. So I'm taking Oregon. Who you got, Savannah?
I got Stanford. Oregon did not beat a ranked team last year at all. So their last game of the season was Boise State, and they lost that one. And then this year, they've played 3 crap teams. San Jose State gave them a good close game. I just don't think that Oregon is going to overcome the trees. They haven't proven themselves to be a number 20 spot to me.
Yeah, I agree with Savannah. I think Stanford beat them.
Oh, man.
Stanford might beat them by 10.
I'm going to say they cover the spread plus some.
Tell you what,
Because, they scored 58 on Bowling Green. They scored 62 on Portland State. But like Savannah said, they struggled and won by 2 touchdowns in San Jose State.
Well, with San Jose State, I was looking at the breakdown of the scoring. The only reason they won that is because the first quarter. Oregon scored 2 in the first quarter. 2 touchdowns. Other than that, San Jose State outplayed them. So.
all right.
No faith in them.
And game of the week, at least in our eyes, not in most people's eyes, because it's a battle of unranked teams. But with all the 5-star hearts, they're ranked number 1 in our heart. Or not mine, but anyways, we've got the Florida Gators
Damn right.
at the Tennessee Volunteers. I think the Vols are gonna volunteer to lose this game. Felipe Franks gonna score about 3 touchdowns in the air, 2 through the run, and those Vols for life might take their life after this game. It's gonna be bad. All right.
Have you watched Florida's offense?
Nope. Don't have to. I just know Tennessee's defense is not good.
Have you seen Florida's defense? It's not good either. It's going to be a shit show for both teams.
That's why I think Felipe Franks can do some work.
I'm not sure that either team can score 5 touchdowns in a game against an FBS team.
This is going to be an embarrassing game for both teams. But I gotta say, Florida is some. You can bleep all of that. I hate Florida from the bottom of my heart. They're a rival of both of my favorite teams. So, Florida.
I mean, to be honest, if the whole state just kind of, got detached, I'd be cool with it.
All right, Robby, I need to hear your hot takes, all right? The fans need to hear it.
Anyway, I picked Tennessee. I don't know if I said that, but
I figured it was pretty obvious after you called them.
Bleep, bleep, bleep,
bleep,
bleep.
bleep,
That's
bleep,
all you're
bleep.
going to hear, because...
All right. The stove's preheated. Let's bring out the hot takes, Robby. What you got?
So, I think Tennessee's going to win. I think it's going to be a shit fest. And I think the score might be like 12 to like 9.
It's going to be a horrible game.
How many interceptions are thrown?
Tennessee has not thrown an interception yet this year.
They've only thrown 2 touchdown passes with Garantano.
That's just because, I mean, he gets in a rhythm to throw it, and then our play calling gets questionable. But we only had 1 turnover this year.
Y'all played that track. Hold on. Y'all only had 1 turnover and you played West Virginia?
We didn't turn the ball over against West Virginia.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let you finish.
I think the difference in this game, honestly, is going to be Neyland Stadium. It's a 7 o'clock kickoff. It's against Florida. We have to play Florida at night.
Everybody on Twitter's hyped to go to Neyland. Like
5. I'll be there.
People have been dropping big cash on this game. It's a shit show.
I'm going to be hammered. 102,000 people are going to be in that bitch. Just sloshed. So you know they're going to be loud. Like, I don't know if you saw it, but in 2015 when we played Oklahoma, it got so loud that like after the first series, they had to change how they snapped the ball because their silent count wouldn't work. Because
I saw that no one knew that the ref had blew the whistle in overtime.
Yeah, it was so loud that the players couldn't hear the ref blow the whistle from the field. That's gotta be. I'd imagine that's pretty loud.
I've been to Neyland when it's pretty loud. I don't remember what year it was. It's either like 2012 or 2013. We played Vanderbilt and lost to them. So it was fun up until we lost. But I will say the environment was fun. The game itself went badly.
I think the loudest game I've been to at Neyland was the year that LSU played Bama in the national championship. We played LSU at home, and like the first half, I think we were losing, but it was like 10-7, and it was loud the first like 2.5 quarters, and then they kind of pulled away.
Dude, what was it? Okay, so I've only been there once, and they were playing an FCS team. But I can tell, like, I was seeing some trash talk even with the FCS team's fans. How much money would it take you, or take away, like, your absolute hatred for Florida, how much money would it take someone to have to pay you to walk in there with a Florida shirt on and walk out if Florida won? Like, you know that you would be getting death threats as you walk.
It's going to be rough. You have to give me a lot of money.
Like, because people are going to be trashing you. Like,
Florida fans are just, like, the worst. I've never experienced it in person. I've never been to the Florida game before this Saturday. But I've heard that Florida fans are just the worst kind of people.
Hey, they can't be as bad as them FAU fans that we're going to see next weekend. But y'all got anything else to say?
I do. This has absolutely nothing to do with college football. If you're still listening at this point and you don't care about this weird story, just click on off. But
oh god,
there is a story here. There's a restaurant in Maine that gets lobsters stoned before killing them.
Hey.
So they like the cook said that he thinks that it's more humane. So they sedate the lobsters with cannabis before killing and cooking them.
Hey.
That's interesting.
That's interesting, yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, I just thought that was a weird story.
Fun fact. Anyone that has listened this far is probably also sedated with cannabis.
Yeah. I wonder if you get stoned from eating stoned lobster.
It might happen.
A different kind of edible has been born.
It's got to be legal in Maine. I don't know.
Who gives a shit?
Thank you, Wes. Savannah, for that random story. Very cool.
You, Ryan.
Oh my god. Okay.
I just want Florida can go to hell.
Oh my god.
He didn't drop an F-bomb?
Yes, he did.
He said Florida?
Yeah.
He said F Florida. I was just talking.
Oh.
Robby, you want to get a clear one?
Florida.
And F BJ?
Oh, yeah, and Bush Jones.
It's a weekly occurrence, he says it.
It's a tradition now.
Daily thing.
That's the
Go to hell.
that's the most said phrase in the state of Tennessee.
Hey, maybe Ohio State will fire Urban. Ryan Day will decide to leave, and Butch Jones will become the next head coach at Ohio State.
That would not happen in a million years.
I saw something on Twitter, and it was like a media guy. I can't remember who it was. But he tweeted that he stumbled across a Georgia Tech message board where their fans actually want them to hire Butch Jones.
Oh, no.
Can you imagine how bad Georgia Tech would get?
They would have to stop running the triple option.
Yeah.
That's just a horrible decision all the way around.
I like how there was a little span where Georgia Tech was not running the triple option, but now, like, I can't imagine them running anything other than the triple option.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, a Power 5 school running the triple option is pretty impressive just because you can get better athletes, and that's why it works so well for Georgia Tech usually. But they fell off lately.
When Tennessee was going through their debacle of a coaching search, I read that Paul Johnson's agent actually reached out to Curry that he was interested in the job. I mean, I feel like we've won some ball games because teams don't see that every year.
Especially with big offensive linemen.
Yeah. And I mean, you could get some recruits in the SEC running that offense.
Well, yeah, can you imagine, which obviously Jalen Hurd's gone now, but, like, Jalen Hurd, Alvin Kamara, like, skilled backs in that offense would be impressive.
Like, you could put Jawan at quarterback, and then Kamara and Hurd as the two tailbacks.
And just get some big-ass linemen.
Yeah. Be nasty.
Alright, so you heard it here. Urban Meyer's garbage. Miami's going to go out and kill Florida International. And
TCU's winning the ship.
TCU going to have a tight win against Texas.
The swamp is not getting drained in Neyland.
Nope, so that's about it. We were supposed to pick our updated top 4 for the national championship this week, but
we're your top 3 hosts of the podcast.
So our boys bailed on us. So we're gonna try to do that next week. Anyways, PodBois.
Oh.
Go Slaves!